Okay, I'm calling this video my inexperience with Jack Greene's Royal Navy. This was produced by Jack in 1984 under his own company, Quarterdeck Games. Now, Jack has produced several naval games using the same system, Kriegsmarine and Iron Bottom Sound, I believe. Anyway, I didn't own this game in '84. I didn't collect any of the naval games in that series. But in the last 6 months or so, I picked up Royal Navy and Iron Bottom Sound. And I thought I'd try a simple scenario of Royal Navy this morning. And I came upon a kind of a roadblock that I was not very comfortable with. And this is not the kind of video I like producing either. But I thought I would just show you the stumbling blocks I had in even trying to play this game. And we'll just see how it goes. Now, this is not meant to be a bashing of the game itself. I'm sure it's a very good simulation. It certainly appears to be. But it is not a very easy game to learn for a beginner. And I'm experienced with naval games and naval combat in general. So I was quite surprised to come upon the stumbling blocks that I did encounter. But I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if I show you, perhaps you'll get the idea. Okay, well, the game obviously comes with a rule book. It's about 15 pages long, and it's fairly comprehensive. Done in the case system. It's well illustrated, and there's instructions on how to fill out the logs. I'll get to that in a moment. You get these data sheets because the data for all the ships must be transferred to a log. They are very detailed. So you're getting things like primary, secondary, tertiary guns, speed, torpedo tubes, hull hits, victory points, where the turrets are. There's a mine of information on these data log sheets, all different nationalities. Okay, Germany, France, Italy, so and so. Okay, like a lot of other naval games, you're going to have to transcribe this information from the data sheets onto these generic ship's logs. This is where I had a lot of difficulty. Now, I do point out that these ship's logs are generic because, for example, they'll show on the log 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 turrets. Now, not all ships have 8 turrets, so you have to be very careful when you're transcribing this information onto that. That's where I had the difficulty, but I'll get to that later. You get a whole mess of counters, which is nice. You get Germans, Italians, Royal Navy, of course, Russians. The counters are nice. I'll zoom in on those in a moment. But they all fit in one hex, and they have mainly movement information on it, type of ship, and the name. Let's take a closer look. Okay, here's a closer view of the counters. Indomitable, Indefatigable, Breslau, and Goeben. I was trying the Flight of the Goeben scenario, and you can see Captain Kennedy there and Rear Admiral Suchan. Suchan is related as -3, and Captain Kennedy is a -1. In this game, negative is good for the captain. So you want kind of negative modifiers. And it shows you the class of the vessels: BC, battle cruisers, and CL, light cruisers. The numbers are mainly the speed numbers, which, by the way, in this game has something that most naval games don't have. Jack has got a very gradual, gradated system of movement, and it works very well. It's mainly to show the difference between, let's say, a ship going 30 knots and one going 29. Most games, naval games, don't have that fine gradation. So a 29-knot ship and a 30-knot ship will be the same. In Jack's game, he's got it finely graded, so eventually a 30-knot ship will outdistance a 29-knot ship. So that's one of the strengths of the game. It is very much a simulation. And there's just the way I've sorted the counters, Polish counters and French, and you've got your markers. But my real purpose in the video is to show you the difficulties I had with the game, not the game itself. And that's a shame, because like I said, I wanted to highlight this game, show why I liked it a lot. But because of the barriers I've encountered, I can't really show that. Let's explain the situation. Okay, as I mentioned, you're going to have to transfer this information from your information sheets to those log sheets. Now, as an example, we're going to use Goban. Now, some of the stuff is quite easy to transfer. I mean, the designer has given instructions on how to fill out the logs. But where it gets dicey is in the turret arrangement. Now, some of the stuff is pretty easy. You mark down the primary guns, secondary guns, tertiary guns, speed, etc. And you can see there are illustrations on how to fill this out. I mean, primary, secondary, tertiary, that's just filling in numbers. Here's where it gets dicey, and the descriptions in the rules don't quite exactly match what is on these ship logs. Let me explain. Look at this picture of Goban here. It clearly shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turrets. Okay, and then it shows these secondary ones, 4. So 7 turrets. But I knew that the Goban did not have 7 turrets. So I really wasn't understanding how to fill out these logs. What do these numbers mean? Why is there 7 turrets? And they seem to be primary ones. So what I was forced to do was actually get out my old 1967 game Jutland, and I got out my ship miniatures to study the turret arrangements of the Goban. You shouldn't have to do that. Now here's a Moltke class battle cruiser, of which the Goban is that type. And you can see, historically, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turrets. So I'm not understanding why there's 7 shown on this log. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not that bright. I'm just not understanding something. I don't know. So I even pulled out my little wee model of in this case, the Von der Tann, but it's the same kind of vessel. And you can see the turrets. 1, 2, 3. Actually, it shows 4 here. Yeah, 4. So that's even more mysterious to me. Unless he's trying to show individual guns. I just do not understand what he's trying to show on the data chart. And even worse, how do you fill it out when you transfer that data to here? Because these always show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because ships like Agincourt, which have a lot of turrets, do need this kind of generic ship log. I had the same trouble when I was doing Indomitable and Indefatigable too. I really couldn't figure out the designer's intent on his log sheets. So I really couldn't fill them out maybe the way the designer intended. I'm not sure. So of course I made my mistakes. I filled them out, whited out the ones that got wrong, and struggled with it. And finally filled out the Indomitable and Indefatigable to what I think is correct, but I don't know it's correct. And that is a little bit chagrining. I shouldn't have to go back to the turret arrangements from models to figure out how to fill out the log sheets. So that's a big negative for me, because I've spent a good, at least an hour trying to fill out just 4 ships on a log. And that's why I tried just the scenario Escape of the Goban, because I only had really 4 ships involved. I can't imagine trying to fill out the logs for a larger scenario. So that's a big negative for me. But, okay, I got them filled out to some degree. I think I've understand how the ships are supposed to fire. So I began moving some ships. And then I found out some other things that I didn't quite understand. Okay, so I did a move or two. And like I said, I do like the way the movement works. the player without the initiative moves his vessels first, about half the speed. Then the player with the initiative moves his full speed. Then the player without the initiative can finish his move. So the movement I thought was kind of neat. So I ended up with this kind of scenario where the ships were, what, about 7 hexes apart? Yeah, about that. They were about 7 hexes apart. So, being historical, I had the Goeben fire on the lead ship, and I had the Breslau fire on the trailing ship. I got to the point, following the rules, where I added up the gunnery factors, which I think were right, because remember, I had trouble with the log sheets. I'm not sure if I was using the right numbers, but I think I was. And I rolled the correct dice, cross-hatching the dice with the combat factors, and understanding that if it was in this range, it would show whether I got 0 hits, 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, so on. But where it became rather unclear were some of the modifiers. I looked at the modifiers there. It was a day scenario and the range here, so it would be -10. I think I figured that out okay. There was also speed modifiers, so that was okay. So I finally deduced that, okay, the Goeben got 1 hit on Indefatigable. That made sense. But when I had the Breslau fire, and it got a hit on the, I guess it was the other one, the Indomitable, I was totally unclear. By the dice, it was clearly a hit, but, and this is where I began to lose it, I realized that penetration had to be a factor. Had to be. Especially a game designed by Jack Greene, I'm sure he took that into account. Because I had 4.1-inch guns firing at the Indomitable that apparently had primary armor, or rather belt armor of 6-inch, 7-inch. So I wasn't sure whether the 4.1-inch shell could penetrate belt armor of 6-inch. My logic and reason said probably not. But you were supposed to go to this chart here, which is the armor penetration table, and there was no explanation on how to read it. Now, like I said, I've got a lot of experience with some naval games, but I couldn't figure this chart out, and there was no explanation on how to read it. I mean, here you've got the yards, how far it is, and there's the smallest caliber gun. Yeah, I guess you're supposed to take the caliber of the gun, read up to the range, and I don't know what you do after that. I just don't know. So if it matches this line, or is it below it, means it does penetrate, it doesn't penetrate, I don't know. The explanation, I don't know. I just don't get it. So that kind of turned me off from the game, and I was a bit stalled. Now, what did I learn from all this? Well, if I learned anything, and I never even got into the type of hits, the gunnery hits results table, which, affect different parts of the ship. Of course, I never got to the torpedo hits and all kinds of torpedo characteristics. So, I don't know. I can't say I can rate this game. I really haven't played it. I guess for me, the game has a level of sophistication or another level of complication that I'm uncomfortable with, which probably means I'll never get to Iron Bottom Sound in any of the larger scenarios. Because if I'm having trouble playing a scenario with only 4 ships, God knows what it would be like if I tried 6 or 7. And since I don't know the game very well, wow, special damage table too. And I never even got to flotation either. So, I don't know. This game obviously is for your real aficionado, which I thought I was, but obviously I'm not. Now, I've got other games too that are even more complicated, like Fear God and Dreadnought from Clash of Arms. Those are what I called fanatic level games. I just don't have the time for them. I prefer something a lot simpler. So, I don't know. I think this game, it's out of print now. I hear it's going to be reprinted, and it is certainly for your naval aficionados, which I guess I'm not. And I know Jack is working on a Jutland game, which is going to be based very much on this system. All I can say is if the logs and the instructions are not very well laid out, I can't see that game being an introductory game for someone getting into naval for the first time. I just don't see it. I think I've pre-ordered, well, you can't even pre-order Jutland, but if it does come out, I would like to get it. But I'm realizing now I'll probably will never play it. And that's not good. I buy games to play them, not just review them and get rid of them. So, I don't know. Don't know what else to say about Royal Navy, except this is just a video about my experience with it. So, I don't want to turn anybody off who's interested in the subject. God, if you like detailed World War I and World War II battleship games, this is probably your cup of tea. It's just probably on a level, one more level or two more complicated that I'm happy with. So that's it for Royal Navy, and this video may not be all that you want it to be, but well, it is what it is. So thank you for watching.